Good afternoon. Welcome to the latest Chat with the Superintendent webinar. My name is Jackie Tisdale. I'll be your moderator today. Today's topic will be Understanding School and District Performance Scores. Let's go over a couple little ground rules. This is a 30-minute webinar, includes a presentation and a Q&A session. All the microphones of our attendees are muted except for our presenters. You will have a chance to provide some comments and some feedback with a survey after the webinar, and then we also want you to submit some questions to our moderators using the question chat module. Today's panelists are our Superintendent, David Alexander, our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. A. Denise Graves, one of our fabulous instructional supervisors, Ms. Melissa Langlois, who works a lot with data for us, and again, I'm Jackie Tisdale, I'm your moderator. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent David Alexander.
Well, hello. We want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us here. Thank you for your interest in these measures that we get every year from the state that helps us better understand how well we're serving our children as it comes to their academic performance. Just to put some things in context first before we celebrate here, as we begin to go through some of these results, remember, we know that Ascension Parish students, our school system, our community is way more than a letter grade as defined by state academic results. However, we also acknowledge the fact that these academic results help us determine how well our students are basically doing at school as they measure our students' performance in English, math, science, and social studies. And you'll see that they measure performances in capstone testing that occur at the high school level that's right now an ACT or Work Keys focused. And it also helps us measure, are we tracking our students and helping and supporting our students properly to graduate on time so that they can go and pursue those post-secondary things properly prepared to both academically and social, emotionally, and as well as equipped with some talents to be able to go pursue the things that they want to do as it matches their interest and their talents moving on into post-secondary life, being a contributor to their community. So we know that the work of Ascension Parish Schools and the work of our community in supporting children is always way more than a letter grade. At the same time, we are extremely honored and proud and just delighted to share with our community here that we continue to be a school district that's rated as an A by state standards in terms of how the state of Louisiana rates school systems. In fact, our performance during the 2017-2018 school year has ranked us as the #2 school district in Louisiana. That's the highest ranking we've ever had on these state measures in the history of our school system. And this is an overall ranking. And I want to tell you that this is a credit, first of all, to our students. I mean, they're the ones that commit to the hard work every year, throughout the year. They do that homework every night. They are determined to continue to make gains as they're supported by their families, their parents, the people at their houses. They're the ones that actually take these tests and pursue graduation and actually accomplish these goals. So it's a big shout out certainly to them. But then secondly, outside of the family, the most important person in a student's life is that classroom teacher. And we just have to take a moment right now to applaud and give a loud moment of praise to our teachers and their hard work. They are truly public servants, and I know we have a lot of people in our community, in our state, in our nation that are public servants, and we properly honor them. But I'm going to tell you, our teachers are public servants worthy of honor, worthy of being highly valued for the work they do in our school buildings. And that's not just a moment of work here and there. These results come from a daily commitment to making sure every day that they are properly prepared for that classroom moment so that students leave every day with a little bit more incremental development than they had the day before they came to class with. And then there's so many that directly support classroom experiences with the teacher, our paraprofessionals, and then everybody in our school system that supports that classroom experience, whether they're in operational services like child nutrition, maintenance, transportation, you name it, technology, the whole bit, and all of those support services that support just the operations and administrative services of schools like HR, business services, and things like that. We are so fortunate, so blessed to be in a school system that has such a high-quality workforce that makes these kind of things happen. So, bravo once again to the work of all of those, from students through every staff member that we have, that we are able to share these kind of results on state measures that our state has ranked Ascension Parish as the #2 school system on these academic measures. So we want to talk a little bit about these academic measures. First of all, let's just look at the distribution of letter grades of our schools. And if you'll notice in the, you can see these bar graphs here that show that over time how, we have increased the number of A schools, B schools, C schools all over time. And this is just a great little diagram here, a depiction of how we've gone since the 2010-2011 school year. This is certainly not the work of just recent times, but Ascension Parish Schools, since the inception of a grading system where the state wanted to roll together certain academic measures into a letter grade, we have continued to embrace those data points, use those to help us serve our students better while we continue to protect all those things that the state doesn't measure. But at the same time, we are happy to see that we continue to make great progress. If you'll notice down there, back in 2010-2011, we had 3 F schools in Ascension Parish. There are no F schools anymore in Ascension Parish, and there's now 19 of our schools are A and B schools. That's just a shout out to not only the work of 2017-18, but the work of the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And really before there was even a letter grade system. These results, if we went all the way back to probably the 60s and 70s, we would find that Ascension continues to find ways to serve its students better. So just a quick look at where this grading system comes from. So we've tried to share this with our community a number of times. Basically, I'll walk you through this just a little bit. The way schools are measured by the state of Louisiana, there is one way that something that happens every spring in April, and that's where our 3rd through 8th graders take statewide assessments. They take an assessment in math, science, English, and social studies. And in the past grading system, however they scored on that test, they earned points for the school and the school district in terms of how they scored on that test. What's new about the new grading system is that students still earn points for the results that they earn on that test. There's 5 categories of results. When a student finishes taking a test in the 3rd through the 8th grade, really all the way through high school, because we do high school testing in 9th and 10th grade. 9th and 10th grade. When a student takes a state test, they're now scored at either advanced, mastery, basic, approaching basic, or unsat. And depending on where their score falls in one of those 5 categories, they earn points. In the new grading system, they earn 150 points if they're advanced. They earn 100 points if they're mastery. They earn 80 points if they're basic. And they don't get any points for being approaching basic or unsat. In the past, students earned more points for each category. In the past, they earned 150 points for advanced, 125 points for mastery. That was 25 points more than what they earned this past year. 100 points for basic, which is 20 points more in the past than it was in this previous year, where they only earned 80 points, and still no points for approaching basic or unsat. So all of those points in the past, prior to the 17-18 school year that students earned, were rolled up and calculated into an index that fell in a letter grade system that gave primary schools and middle schools most of their letter grade. Middle school's got a little credit on something called a Dropout Credit Accumulation Index. You'll see it there on your screen. It's a DCAI. And a portion of a very small portion of a middle school's grade really comes from how well students perform in high school after they leave a middle school. You can look that up more on a website. Certainly email us if you want more information around that. It's a very small part of middle school grading. And then in high schools, these state tests, again, there's how high schools earn their letter grade from these state tests, but they also earn a letter grade from an ACT index, which includes ACT testing, which I know you're all familiar with. It's an entry-level test for colleges. And there's another component of ACT that emerged about 3 or 4 years ago called Work Keys. And it is an assessment that's created by ACT, but it measures more a student's ability to move straight into the workforce with workforce cognitive skills rather than just academic skills that indicates their preparation for college coursework. And then high schools are also measured on a graduation rate and something called a strength of diploma that we'll talk about later on. But you'll also see in yellow on this screen something that's brand new to this school year, and that is that schools are now also given a growth index. And that comes from now not only just how a student performs and how the grade or the performance on that test fits into one of those categories of advanced, mastery, basic, approaching basic, or unsat, but a student beginning in the 4th grade all the way through when they finish testing in high school that student's score in their current school year is compared to how they performed in the past, and we're given points for how much that student grows. And I got to tell everybody, this is something that we believe is one of the most important shifts in the accountability system. This is an extremely positive shift. We're anxious to have this kind of information because it's not just important for us to know that a child, say, in the 5th grade scored mastery on their test, which we're saying, wow, if they're at mastery, then they're certainly performing at a high level at their grade. But we also now are getting information about how that score compares to what they did last year. And, if that student were mastery last year and at the same mastery rate the next year, didn't grow very much at all, we would be concerned over that. But we've never had that kind of data before in the past. Similarly, with a student that maybe scores at the unsatisfactory or approaching basic level on a test, say in 4th grade, it concerns us because we know that student is not yet on grade level, being unsatisfactory or approaching basic. And then they take their test again in the 5th grade and they're still approaching basic or maybe still unsatisfactory. That still concerns us, but now we're getting information that says, yeah, but this child that was unsatisfactory in the 4th grade grew a year's worth of growth in the 5th grade. And although they were very low performing in the 4th grade, they are showing remarkable academic growth. And we believe that if they'll continue on that track now, they're going to be where we want them to be by the time they're in high school. And we've got to remind our community, our teachers, our parents, our students, that the end game is what matters. It's not really how a 4th grader performs in 2017-18, but it's how that 4th grader performs 6, 7, 8, and 9 years down the road when they're in high school. And what's really important about this new data that we're getting now from the state is beginning to show us how that growth is taking place. So hopefully that's a fast overview of the accountability system. The main point there is that students take tests. They are scored on those tests. Those scores on the student test give points to a school system, and it's calculated at the state level. And now what's new is there is growth from one year to the next that's also calculated in the accountability system that comes up with these letter grades. If you'll notice, this next slide is just giving you a real quick overview of what's happening in the state. There's a new formula, old formula. Remember, I made a reference back there that the old formula really offered more points for advanced, mastery, basic, approaching basic, and unsat, and the old formula didn't include student growth. The new formula offers less points for advanced, mastery, basic, approaching basic, and unsatisfactory, but the new formula does include growth. And if you'll notice, the very top up there, in the old formula, the annual state average there, the state was considered a B on its letter grading system, and that's all the schools and all the school districts in the state of Louisiana, came out to be a 93. Well, in the new formula, now it's a 76.1. That's still considered a letter grade of a B because they kind of broadened the sort of grading scale there. But what I do want you to note is that the state, it looks like they're dropping. They're really not. The state's not dropping. What's happening is the state actually changed the way it measures by giving less points, remember, for advanced mastery, basic, approaching basic, and unsat, but also including a growth index there. So if you look at the chart below there, you'll notice that, look all the way back there to the right, where it says 2012-13. Notice back in 2012 and 13, there were only 9 school districts in the state of Louisiana that were an A, 28 that were a B, 23 that were a C, 9 that were a D, 3 that were an F, 72 total school districts. Fast forward almost to all the way to the left, but stop at the second, that column that says 2017-18 old formula. Had the state made no shifts to its accountability system, we would now be at 21 A school districts, 25 B, 15 C, 8 D, and 1 F. But we did make a shift. They just showed you the calculation there that would have happened had they not made a shift. Now, under the new accountability system in the state of Louisiana, that we have a little bit more rigor. Remember, there's less points offered for each tested category that a student earns there, each performance category that a student scores at, but there's now growth included in that formula. We have now only 4 A school districts in Louisiana. Notice the drop there comes, though, that there's more B's, more C's, more D's, and you'll see, but less, a couple of more F's than last year, but not a huge increase there. So the shift is that, school districts drop because they lost a little points on those performance things, and there's a new growth measure in there that school districts are not necessarily haven't yet learned how to operate inside and learn how to move that needle. But proud to announce that Ascension is part of those 4 school districts that remains in A. The next page just kind of gives you a similar view around just schools themselves. If you'll notice, under the new formula, there's only 81 A schools in the state of Louisiana, 290 B, 330 for C's, and so forth and so on. Notice, though, at the bottom of the page, had the state not changed its accountability system, there would have been 179 A schools. But notice that the F schools, everything's kind of dropping down there. So the 179 A schools would have existed, but only A do under the new formula. So you can see everything kind of shifts downward rather than 248 B schools. You get more B schools because of this shift, more C schools because of this shift. Just makes sense. When you raise the grading scale, you get less A's, more B's, C's, D's, and F's. Happened to us all in school when that happened. That's what's happening under this accountability system. Just a few data points as we try to quickly move through a few things here and have some time at the end for questions. Few data points here. Again, we've already mentioned Ascension Parish Schools, number 2 school system in the state of Louisiana under the new system. Our overall score, which remember that score of 91.2, is a roll-up of all the things the state measures. And the state measures testing on science, social studies, math, and English for 3rd graders through 10th graders. It measures students on how they perform on ACT and work keys, and it measures how students either graduate on time or not, and it measures how students get out, not only with a diploma, but with a diploma that prepares them properly for the post-secondary world, with some indicators on that diploma that we'll talk about here just briefly in a few minutes. Roll all that up. Zachary, you can see, rolls all of their measures up, and it comes out to 93.6. Ascension rolls all theirs up, comes out to 91.2, making us number 2 in the state. A real quick shout out to Lafourche, who's number 3, moved way up the ladder. They were lower than number 10 last year, really doing some great work down there. Dr. Joanne Matthews, their superintendent, phenomenal year back in 17-18 serving children. Y'all, this is not a competition. This is about students performing in the state of Louisiana. And we want to see more and more districts moving upwards there. And we certainly want to make sure that we're serving our students at a high level as well. The next slide shows really just a single measure. This is called an assessment index. This is just how our students performed on testing. Has nothing to do with growth, has nothing to do with graduation, has nothing to do with ACT. This is strictly state testing here. I'm sorry, I apologize. This is our progress index. This is our progress index. This strictly goes toward growth. This slide you're looking at right now is how Ascension Parish students performed in the spring of 18 when they took a test as compared to how they performed the previous year when they took a test. So it's not the results of the test. It's not whether they were advanced, mastery, basic, approaching basic, or unsat. No matter what their performance band was, they may be an unsat student, they may be an advanced student, but this slide is how the state measured growth going on in our school system. So our fourth graders, when their score was calculated in 2018, they were compared to how they did back in third grade, or fifth graders compared to fourth graders, all the way on up. Notice Ascension Parish Schools has the highest K-8 through high school growth index of any school system in the state of Louisiana. 102.1. I'd love to have the time to show you where that 102.1 exactly comes from. But let me just tell you, that means that our children, no matter whether they're demonstrating high academic performance or they're struggling and overcoming some learning challenges and things like that, and a lower performing student, but they grew as compared to their performance last year. This is something we're very proud of. This is something we're really looking closely at to make sure that we understand it with a lot of detail and we find out exactly where that growth is occurring. And we also want to identify areas where maybe it's still not occurring at the level we want it to. This is a tremendous accomplishment for a school system. The next slide is what I jumped off into before I realized that I was on the wrong slide. This is strictly an assessment index. This truly is just a measure of how a student performed, nothing else. They may have performed exactly the same way they did the previous year. They got some points for that performance. It all rolls up. If you notice, Ascension is number 3 in the state on its overall assessment index. That is how children are scoring in the spring on state testing. Has nothing to do with how much they grew. It's just how they performed. We're proud of this ranking. We're proud of this performance. We're proud that our students are scoring well on these tests, but we're equally and more proud of that growth that's occurring in our school system. If you look at the next slide, it's our ACT slide. This is sort of a capstone test. This is a nationally ranked test. Ascension students are number 8 in the state of Louisiana overall and how they're performing on an ACT test. You know, it's kind of tightly packed in there from number 8 all the way up through really number 4, 20.3 all the way to 20.9. There's less than a point difference between number 4 and number 8. Really, there's less than a point difference between number 3 and number 8. It's a really tight pack in there. We want to continue, though, to look at how our students are scoring on their ACT as they're preparing to go to college and how we can support and help some strong movement there. The next slide is just an ACT index ranking. This is a combination between ACT testing and work keys. So remember, we have some students now that are focused on a work keys test because they've chosen they're not planning to go to college, and they're going to take a work keys test and become work ready. As a matter of fact, our high school team, Ms. Edwards, is leading a charge there around our high school team, helping us become a work-ready community where we can use some of these work keys assessments to help our students get jobs with business and industry in our local area. We know we've got some work to do here. Number 18, we want to be in the top 10, but we wanted to share with you one of these places. This is a combination between ACT and work keys. That's why it's called an ACT index. We also wanted to share with you our graduation rate. We're really proud that our graduation rate is up there in the high 80s, 88.1%. We want it in the 90s. The state average there is 78.2, so we're well above the state average. But we also want our graduation rate to be well aligned with the standards we have around ACT testing and state testing. In other words, we don't want our students performing at approaching basic and unsat and even basic on state testing, yet we're graduating them from high school. We want to be sure that their demands that we put on them to earn a diploma stays at a high level, that our diploma in Ascension Parish has a high credibility to it. We believe that we can get up into the 90% there in the next year or two, and so we look forward to continuing to press that. And then the final slide, or final couple of slides here, the graduation index is just a strength of diploma slide. Would love to talk more about that. We're winding down here. This is how we're graduating our students with things like AP tests, dual enrollment, credentials in electrical, welding, pipe fitting, all those things that make them post-secondary ready. We're in the top 10 in the state there. And then the next slide just shows that we are working with our schools. We have that top Canes honoree there. We have 21 of our schools that are top Canes. That means that they grew at the highest level, and we told you already that growth index is what we're really happy about. And equity honoree schools, that is how we're serving our subgroup students. These are 9 of our schools that served at the 90th percentile or higher for students that are classified English learners or students with disabilities or economically disadvantaged. And then finally, just remember, your school system here, we are proud of the academic development. We're helping our kids become good at school. We're hoping transitioning, helping that development also equate to success beyond post-secondary, beyond their graduation days and into their post-secondary season of life. But we are more than a letter grade. We have high-quality athletic programs, performing arts, band, music, drama, technology that's going on deeply around student credentials there, teaching our students computer science, STEM classes, robotics awards, clubs, beta. We have so many things that are helping develop children, both not just academically, but also helping our students develop skills that match their talent and interest, and also helping our students develop that emotional maturity they're going to need to make decisions and cope with challenges in the adult life. We went very close to the end here. We got 3 minutes, willing to extend this for a few minutes, even past the 1 o'clock hour, and field questions.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent. We do have a couple of questions before I start addressing those. Just want to remind our audience that you can use your question chat module. Just type in your question. It'll come to me, so it can be anonymous, and then I'll ask the questions to our panelists. So our first question is about the ACT score. Do you feel that it is good or bad to require all students to have to take the ACT?
Well, I think it's a good measure. Students never know. They may have a particular path that they're planning a journey. They're 17 and they think that they want to go one direction or another. But you never know when you might want to enter college. And it's always good to have at least some sort of gauge there. So I don't think it does any harm asking the students to take an ACT. It really doesn't impact graduation. It's a good indicator there, and certainly the work keys that matches the ACT is produced by ACT that helps you determine one path or the other, whether or not you're prepared for career or whether or not you're academically prepared to be successful in college. Knowing sort of where you stand as you leave high school is probably a good thing to know. And so those are good indicators there. I won't say they're the only indicator, but they're certainly good indicators of that sort of preparation that you might need to take one path or the other.
Thank you. Our next question is there anything that's not being measured in the state's accountability system that you think should be measured?
Well, that's a great question. Obviously, I think there are a number of things. We receive accreditation from an organization used to be known as SACS. Now it's Advanced Ed. Whereas that may be calculated somewhat in state measures, schools have to, that measures your organizational processes. It measures your commitment to so many services like media center services and technology, and it also measures your commitment to ongoing improvement. So there would be one place that you would like to say that why can't our state take maybe some advanced ed measures and enroll them into our school? And then, I think our state continues to recognize the need to measure some areas of non-assessment. In fact, in the years to come, there is a section of the state accountability system that's not active right now called interest and opportunities. And those are how students are providing access, and not only access, but quality programs in the arts and world languages, in the performing arts, and the creative arts, and other offerings that they have there that help students navigate or be prepared to navigate post-secondary life, whether that's college or the workplace. And I think we're seeking ways to measure that better. It's not an easy thing to measure. So, yeah, I do think there's parts of the state accountability system that we'll continue to see grow and provide different measures for school systems.
We have time for one last question. How do you think parents can help students improve on their state testing?
That is a great question. A partnership with someone at home, parent, guardian, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, is I think it's just a huge component of student success. As a matter of fact, in our opening slide, when I thank students and then teachers and all the folks that work around them, I failed to thank that home life probably as intentionally as I should have. Having those adults in the lives of a child and helping them, first of all, just encouragement, helping them not be discouraged by challenges. When you're learning something new, whether it's at the 5th grade level, the 6th grade level, the 2nd grade level, or perhaps calculus in high school, when you encounter rigor, and rigor is simply something that stretches your abilities there. When you encounter something new, there's a likelihood that you don't get it for a while, maybe for a few hours, maybe for a few days, maybe for a few weeks. So one thing would be parents helping children overcome those challenges by not immediately saying, well, the teacher's not teaching it right, or the book doesn't look good, or whatever else, but helping them navigate that, helping them see how they can overcome that challenge. That would be one way. And then certainly, continuing those partnerships, those positive relationships between their school and their teacher, because we really all want the same goal. Every one of us have exactly the same goal. In the heart of a parent, they live it every day and every night more than we do. But I'm going to tell you, we all have the same goal, is that we want the children that come to Ascension Parish Public Schools to leave us one day properly equipped to take their next step in life. So, just parents continuing to learn as best they can how they can support, whether it's academic support, whether it's finding other support systems out there around tutoring services maybe that might be available, and encouraging their child to attend services that schools are providing, and encouraging their children to stay the course. So if they make a C, that doesn't define them. Let's go make a B. If they make a D, let's go make a C. If you happen to fail something, don't give up. We don't have to change the standard. Let's overcome and meet the standard. I think that would be something that I would encourage our parents to continue to look at.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent, and our panelists. That is all we have time for today. I wanted to remind our attendees that we will have another Chat with the Superintendent webinar on December 12th, and that topic will be our planning and construction updates about where we are with building new schools and a lot of exciting things happening in that department. Superintendent, do you have any closing comments?
No, I want to thank everybody that joined us. Thank you, Ms. Graves, for being here today, and thank you, Melissa, for helping us organize all this data, and Jackie, thank you for pulling this together like you always do. Good job.
All right. Have a wonderful afternoon.